This next video is titled How to Not Pay Taxes Legally.
Do not pay your taxes. Instead, do this legally. It's tax season and you made $100,000. Time to pay up. Nope. That's wrong. I actually don't owe you anything. Well, you made $100,000. You think I'm not getting a piece of that? I'll tell you why I don't. See, I bought that car for business and marketing. I also used the Augusta rule to rent out my house to my business. I'm also able to write off my travel expenses like my car mileage. Yeah, you so smart. You done talking yet? And because my business is an S-Corp, 20% of my net income is not taxable. I even have a rental property and I could claim this much in depreciation even though the house value keeps going up. So how can I rip you off? I mean, how can I tax you? I made $1. $1? Yeah, you must be watching Humble King Cast for all the money hacks.
Am I crazy? But did he say he's wrote the car off and he takes mileage? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You have to pick one or the other. But he did a lot of things in there that are just kind of crazy. Like the 20%, I'm like, 20% means you have net income. That's not zero. That's not $1. It means 20%. And then there's limitations on that too. There's phase outs. There's specified service businesses that, you know, if you make too much and you can't do it, or you're calculated against W-2 and depreciable assets. Like there's all these little nuances, but they like to just go bleh. So 20% of what? That's what I would say. 20% of your dollar you get to write off because it's off of your net income out of a business. The rest of it is, yes, there's the Augusta rule, which is I'm renting it to a business, which it needs to be a separate taxpayer. So it's a C or an S-Corp. You can write off the business use of your car. So you can't say like marketing. These people say I wrapped my car, so it's marketing. That doesn't work. The courts have already said, nope, that is not a valid. It has to be I'm using the vehicle for a specific reason to make profit. So I need to say who I'm meeting, why I'm driving, where I'm going, why I'm doing it, and what benefit it is to my business, or it's going to be disallowed. So that's why you have to keep that mileage log, and you got to keep a record of why you're using it for that purpose. Now, there's exceptions. Like I don't want to get into too many nuances, but like if you're traveling between two offices all the time, okay, yeah, the IRS isn't going to hound you on that. But if you're driving around and you're saying, hey, I use my car 100% for business and I wrote it all off, okay, that's great. But remember, a deduction doesn't mean a tax credit. A deduction means if I had $100,000 of income and I got a $10,000 deduction, now I have $90,000 of income. And if that's through an S-Corp and I have net income of $90,000, then the 199A deduction just means I get an $18,000 deduction on top of that, which would be what, $72,000 of income. Mm-hmm. That's not zero. And then you're right. You can't write off mileage if you're writing off the vehicle under the actual expense. You have to choose.
Yeah. And I'm making a healthy assumption. I don't think many of these people on TikTok have two offices that they have and that they're driving into. But yeah, that's it. I appreciate you breaking that down. And I find that some people, again, they push S-Corps, which can be great, but not everyone that's starting a business should go right into an S-Corp. And the Augusta rule can be a great strategy as well, but you have to do it properly.
Can I just interject? Because I wrote an article on the Augusta rule in 2001. I still remember like doing all the research on it. And at the time it was very controversial. And there was cases, there's been more cases that have come out. And the IRS will let you write it off so long as there's actual business usage. So the Augusta rule is a fancy way of saying we just had the Masters last month. So it's like, oh, it's timely. They call it the Augusta rule because the idea is that there was a senator or somebody advocated for their patrons or their constituents, and they were renting their house out, and they lived by where the Masters is played in Augusta. So they were renting their houses out for these obscene amounts of money during that week, and they didn't have to pay tax on it. And that is absolutely true. I can rent my house up to 14 days. That's it. 14 days, not every day, not rented under a lease, but up to 14 days. And I don't have to recognize it as income. That's it. That's 288, subsection G2. It's very clear. So if I use the house as a residence, it's not for my investment properties. It's for a house that I use as a residence. And it could be a second home. It could even be an RV. It could even be a boat in some cases. But if I rent it to a third party, another taxpayer, then they can pay me for it and I don't have to recognize it as income. Okay, that's great. That's a little bit of money. It's the fair market value of whatever that is. And that other taxpayer could be the corporation having a meeting there, and it needs to be an actual meeting in your home. And so, yeah, you see people do this all the time that have S&C Corps or LLCs taxed as S&C Corps, and they say, let's do our monthly meeting in the home. And to those folks, I say, great, go get your quotes
Yes.
from other accommodations, figure out a reasonable amount. And then if you do that, you don't have to recognize it as income. That's fantastic.